Welcome back. Today we're looking at a piece that pulls together several major news threads: Sarkozy's release in France, global trade shifts, climate talks, and some pretty complex EU budget negotiations.
Quite a mix.
Exactly. And our main goal here is to give some high-level feedback to really boost the impact for the reader.
Right, let's jump in.
Okay, first big thing: completeness and focus. As it stands, the material feels more like an aggregation of facts, and that really diminishes the impact of any one single story.
Mm-hmm.
You've got these four frankly unrelated major narratives side by side. The very personal details of Sarkozy's confinement right next to the technicalities of EU budget reform.
Yeah, no clear thread connecting them all.
Precisely. And that forces the reader to make these abrupt mental shifts, which, honestly, it just dilutes the power of each story. Leaves you feeling a bit, well, overloaded.
That makes sense. It's asking a lot of the reader, isn't it? Constantly changing focus like that. From a, celebrity legal drama to high-level trade policy in a blink.
Totally.
But is there maybe some value in showing that sheer range of things happening at once? How do we convince the writer that, less might actually be more here?
Well, it really comes down to narrative traction. If the aim is for the reader to engage deeply, you've got to commit. Pick an overarching theme or a single narrative focus.
Okay.
Now, if these topics absolutely must stay, then they need much clearer separation. And, crucially, you've got to be willing to cut the weaker links. Let the stronger stories breathe.
Right, because landing four sort of medium punches doesn't have the same effect as one or two really solid ones. The reader walks away with facts, maybe, but no lasting sense of the core conflict.
Exactly. You haven't given them the space to really invest in any one narrative.
Okay, so let's talk concrete options. We need decisiveness. Option A, perhaps. We could say, remove the Sarkozy story entirely.
Yeah, and then use the other policy threads.
Right, focus on the China export ban easing, link the Trump Z stuff to the Dutch backing off Nexperia and put that alongside the COP30 analysis, which also has a strong China angle with clean energy.
That creates a pretty clear focus, doesn't it? It's all about shifting global trade and climate power dynamics. Good for a reader interested in that geopolitical economic angle.
Definitely. But what if the writer's real interest, or the intended audience's interest, is more about, say, European conflict, the rule of law within Europe?
Then we need option B.
Okay, option B. Keep Sarkozy, keep the legal drama, and maybe keep the MMF policy conflict, the EU budget stuff, which is huge internal EU politics.
Makes sense. Those feel more connected.
But then you'd have to cut the global trade and the climate pieces. They just don't have that direct link to, domestic European law or political clashes.
The goal is giving the chosen story, whichever it is, the room it needs to develop properly. Get some real narrative depth, not just superficial headlines.
So the takeaway is structural, fundamentally. Choose your landscape, then describe the interesting features within it. Don't just give us snapshots of four different places.
Well put. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. If we take one segment, like the Sarkozy piece, we hit another issue: significance and relevance. Specifically, how narrative tension is handled.
Yes.
The material gives us these incredibly strong, visceral details, really powerful stuff.
Yeah, the yogurt detail alone is just wow.
Exactly. Fearing his food was spat on, so only eating yogurt. The 9-square-meter cell. Hearing someone screaming, needing intervention for self-harm nearby. It's arresting.
Incredibly humanizing, in a bleak way.
But these details, they're presented almost as just facts. They aren't effectively contrasted with the sort of dry legal arguments for his release, like the court finding no risk of concealment of evidence.
Right. It feels like burying the lead emotionally. The writer has absolute gold here. That yogurt detail, like you said, it puts you right in that cell.
Instantly.
There's almost a duty, to use that detail where it hits hardest. The suggestion here is about juxtaposition. Use the raw, brutal reality of the confinement and smash it up against the technical, almost bureaucratic nature of the legal release. And really lean into the lawyer's quote, "The emotional weight of this detention has caused him great suffering."
Yes. That contrast, the physical, visceral isolation versus the technical, legal outcome, that's where the real significance lies. That's the tension.
Because if the reader gets the dry legal stuff first, they haven't built up any emotional capital, right? They don't feel why the release matters or what that suffering really means.
Exactly. It lands flat.
So the fix is structural again. It's about sequencing for drama. A couple of ways to do this, maybe?
Okay.
First, flip it. Reframe the section. Start with the most shocking personal detail. Lead with the yogurt or the screaming neighbor. Then introduce the lawyer's rationale about preparing the appeal.
Start with the trauma. Establishes the stakes right away.
Gets you invested. Or, second option, explicitly pair the son's celebratory quote, "Long live freedom," with the grim reality of that isolation.
How would you do that?
Maybe follow the quote immediately with a kind of reflective question for the reader. Ask, does this ruling really end the suffering? Or does it just swap one kind of cage, the 9-square-meter cell, for another? Like strict judicial supervision, not being allowed to leave France.
Ah, I see. That turns a news update into something much deeper, a reflection on what freedom even means in this context.
Exactly. It leverages the conflict instead of just stating the facts.
Okay, that leads us nicely into the policy section, which has its own challenges. Third critique, audience alignment and purpose fulfillment.
Right, the MFF negotiations. Always tricky.
Complex stuff, yeah. And these evolving political deals, like the big overhaul of the multi-annual financial framework, they need really clear signposting of the stakes. Otherwise, the reader just gets lost or tunes out. The piece details von der Leyen's concessions on the EU budget ring-fencing 10% for rural areas, the regional check. It's very specific, which is good.
But
it gives us the compromise, the solution, before it fully reminds us of the crisis that prompted it. You sort of forget why MEPs were digging their heels in so hard in the first place.
yeah, the reader needs that why. Why were these concessions even necessary? What was the big fight about? If you just present the 8-page proposal first, the compromise itself feels less significant, doesn't it?
It diminishes the drama of the negotiation. It's fundamentally a cause and effect issue in the structure. The original problem, the cause, was VDL's proposal back in July, right?
The plan to merge CAP and the regional funds?
Yes. Merge the two biggest spending pots in the entire EU budget. That wasn't just administrative shuffling. For many parliamentarian groups, that was a direct threat to their influence.
Exactly. And the writer needs to show that political leverage before they show the result. The fact that 4 major political groups threatened to vote down the budget, that's the core conflict.
That's the heat.
Merging those funds was seen as, well, almost an existential threat to Parliament's control over huge areas of spending. That level of pushback, threatening to kill the whole budget, that's the real story driving these concessions.
And the reader needs to feel that pressure to understand why this 8-page proposal, these concessions, are actually a pretty big deal. A significant climb down, maybe.
The connection has to be crystal clear. It needs to be sequenced properly.
So, concrete examples.
Okay, structurally, take the paragraph that details the MEP's rejection, their threat, the bit where Parliament says it cannot accept this as a basis.
Yeah.
Put that immediately after you summarize VDL's original July merger plan. Bang. Here's the proposal, here's the massive pushback. Context established.
Sets the stage. Cause and effect.
Right. And then you introduce the concessions, the ring fencing, the 300 billion euro guarantee, the regional check. Frame them explicitly as strategic moves designed to cool the temperature in fraught negotiations.
So it reads like a response to the threat.
Precisely. It demonstrates the negotiation dynamics much more clearly. It raises the political stakes for the reader and makes them understand why this technical proposal matters. Makes the complexity worth following.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, this has been really helpful. Let's quickly recap the main actionable suggestions for the writer. We really focused on structural tweaks today, didn't we? All aimed at maximizing impact.
Yeah, ensuring every part of the piece works hard to create a powerful, cohesive experience for the reader.
Okay, first, establish a clear, singular focus. Be decisive. Call the unrelated narratives. Pick your main story, whether it's global dynamics or European politics, and really commit to it. A focused story sticks.
Second, deepen the narrative tension within the individual segments you keep. Use those powerful, visceral human details like the Sarkozy confinement conditions and contrast them sharply with the drier technical outcomes, whether legal or political. Think about flipping the sequence to hit the emotion first.
Right. Maximize those stakes. And finally, number 3, make sure complex policy fights are clearly contextualized,
Always present the political crisis, the underlying conflict like the MEPs threatening the budget vote, before you detail the compromises or solutions that emerged. Show the cause before the effect.
Absolutely. Look, this piece is built on some really strong, detailed reporting. That's the foundation. By making these structural and thematic adjustments, focusing things up, you'll see a big difference in narrative drive and how much it resonates with the reader.
Great potential here.
Definitely. So, we really encourage you to rework the focus, play with the structure based on this feedback, and please send it back in. We'd love to see the next version.